Welcome everybody back to Friar Talk. We are here post All-Star break, and immediately to start the second half, it is going to be a very, very important series for both the Padres and the Phillies. Obviously, a lot more pressure on the Padres in this one just because they're playing catch-up. But starting it out, weekend series, 4-game series with a doubleheader on Saturday. Phillies, Padres, rematch of the NLCS from last season. And the Padres are in a spot where they really, really need to take 3 of 4. I think there'll be some people arguing like, yeah, if you split the series, it's not that big of a deal. But we're at the point in the season where you have to start making up games. And if you're going to be buyers at the deadline, if you're going to be super competitive down the stretch, you need to start playing some catch up now. So taking 3 of 4 in this one is pretty much imperative at this point. It's a huge deal. So going over just the probables in this one, Friday night, it's going to be Yu Darvish against Christopher Sanchez. Saturday, the first matchup is Snell against Walker. And then in the afternoon, Ranger Suarez is slated for the Phillies. The Padres do not have a starter. Like it's to be determined right now. It seems like it's probably going to be either Adrian Morejon or Matt Waldron with Michael Wacha on the IL. So one of those guys, maybe a piggyback, maybe a bullpen day, something like that, which sneak peek, none of us think that's a good move. And then Sunday afternoon will be Seth Lugo against Zach Wheeler. And one thing to note with this is that Joe Musgrove is slated to pitch on Tuesday. And like I said, we think it's really weird that you're not pitching him on Saturday against the Phillies because it's a more important series. But he's going to be pitching on Tuesday against the Blue Jays. So no Musgrove in this one, no walk in this one. The other 3 guys are going. But Chase, starting this out, I would call this a must-win series for the Padres. Do you feel the same way?
Feels like every series right now is a must-win series. I mean, you're kind of behind. You are under 500. You got a lot of expectations ahead of you. You got to figure out whether or not you're going to be selling or buying at the deadline. And the only way to do that is, hey, are you going to win series or are you going to lose series? And if you lose series, are you, okay, is it going to be like, okay, are we splitting series? Are we losing 2 out of 3? Are we getting swept? I mean, the Padres have a lot of decisions banking on, this next month. It's, you kind of make or break your season. Is AJ Preller going to tear up the farm system in hopes that they can win everything again? Or do they kind of just sit back and be like, okay, you know what? This year wasn't our year. Everything kind of just didn't go our way. We're going to shoot again next year and we're going to keep our guys and maybe sell a couple guys, sell a couple pieces to, make sure that you can make a better run next year. You're sitting 4 games below 500 at 43 and 47, and you are 6 games back of the wild card. Philly is half a game back. So basically, if you don't sweep the Phillies, you're kind of putting yourself in a really, really bad position. You need these games. You need to win the series. You need to sweep them. And you need to make up those games somehow. You cannot continue to lose games. If you lose this series to the Phillies, you're becoming more and more sellers than you are buyers. And it's already been kind of confirmed that, hey, you know what? We're kind of looking like we're supposed to be buyers at the deadline, but if we're not winning series, I don't see how that's possible. I don't agree with not throwing Musgrove here. I think you kind of need to throw Musgrove in the series. It doesn't make any sense. Musgrove's been one of your best pitchers. Minus, the Mexico game. He's been just as good as Blake Snell, basically. So I don't see why you would wait to throw him against the Blue Jays. I feel like you kind of need him this series, but yeah, you're absolutely right. It is a must-win.
Yeah, I mean, for sure, it's a must-win. You're looking at the Padres team going in, beat the Mets, swept the Angels. I mean, the Padres were hot going into the All-Star break. Hopefully, they stay hot coming out of the All-Star break. But the Phillies were hotter than us. They were one of the best teams. They've been one of the best teams in baseball over the last month. Trey Turner still yet to find his footing, but he's probably going to find it. I mean, that's a team that we're looking at that could end up being maybe not. It's not going to be a surprise team. I think people expected the Phillies to be in the playoffs, but we might be looking at them at the end of the season saying, hey, this could be one of the hottest teams going into the playoffs. Like they could be dangerous again. But as far as the Padres rotation goes, having a to be determined on Saturday, it doesn't make sense to me. They could very well just move Seth Lugo up to that second Saturday game against Ranger Suarez and throw Musgrove against Zach Wheeler. And then you have your rotation being Darvish, Snell, Lugo, Musgrove. That's a very good starting rotation for your 4 games out of the All-Star break against one of the best teams in baseball right now. Um, yeah, they're half a game back of the Giants, but we need to close the gap. I don't think 2-2 against the Phillies is going to cut it because that you don't make up any ground. 3-1, sure, that sounds great. That sounds amazing, but I mean, a sweep realistically sounds the best, and of course, it's going to be the best. You catch 4 games on them, but if we're being realistic, I think 3-1 is what's going to be necessary for the Padres to have a successful start to the second half. I mean, technically it's already been the second half, but this is what people call the second half. It'd be a good start for them to this second half, and I think they need to set themselves up best for it, which is putting Musgrove in that rotation. And it's kind of already been confirmed that he's going to start that Tuesday game against the Blue Jays, but I mean, you need to treat every game like it's a playoff game right now. The players keep saying there's a lot of baseball left, and I understand that there is still plenty of baseball left, but for us, it doesn't feel that way because we're 4 games down from 500. We're 6 games back. We're 2 weeks away from the trade deadline. If we don't pick it up right now, we could be looking at everyone saying the Padres need to be sellers, us fans saying we need to be sellers, and then the only people that disagree are in the front office, and then they buy, and we still don't make the playoffs, and it ruins everything. So, I mean, in order for me to feel confident in us being buyers, I think we need to be max 5 games out of a playoff spot. I'm thinking like 3 or 4 though, because 5 still feels like a lot. And the teams that are ahead of you are good, man. The Phillies are hot. The Giants are still good. They're dealing with some injuries and they have a really hard schedule coming up soon, but they're still good. The Dodgers are good. The Diamondbacks are falling off a little, but they're still good. So there's good teams ahead of you, man. You want to get out of this, these next 2 weeks, only like 3 or 4 games back. You need to get really hot. And it starts now against a team that's 5.5 games ahead of you. They're 5.5 games ahead of you. They don't have the pitching that you do. We've had one of the best pitching staffs in all of baseball lately, except for the bullpen. Steven Wilson could be back by this series, which would be a huge addition. But yeah, we're not looking at the services of Michael Wacha in this series. So realistically, we need to say, hey, Wacha, if he's healthy, can start that first Tuesday game against the Jays. And if you do that, you're feeling pretty good, right? Now your next 5 lined up are a good starting 5 instead of having to go to a bullpen game. So overall, I mean, you want the Padres to move up Musgrove into one of those slots, whether it be Saturday or Sunday, and you want them to set themselves up for the best possible chance to win. I mean, I think Manny's been getting hot. He's been getting hot lately. One of the hottest hitters of the month. Fernando's still doing his thing. Soto's still doing his thing. So it feels like the lineup's coming around. But yeah, you want to be able to set your staff up for each of them going 6 or 7, so you don't have to go to one of the worst bullpens in baseball, I think, right now.
Yeah, I'm 100% there with you. And it just is really odd that they decided to go this route. Because you were talking about it before. I think it was you that said this, Isaac. They're still treating it like it's a marathon, and right now it's become a race where they're at in the season. And that's the truth of it, is like there's ebbs and flows of a baseball season. The whole thing is a marathon, but there are times where you have to really, push hard to win series, to win games, stuff like that. So I think this is one of those series. I think this is going to be a big one. The idea of either like Matt Waldron, Adrian Morejon, with how up and down he's been, pitching against a really good Phillies lineup, I don't like that at all. This is a good team. They started out really bad, just like the Padres, and they've turned it around more. They struggled a lot early on. I want to say they were pretty far down the standings, even earlier on than the Padres. So I think this is a tough one. And you actually end up looking at this lineup. I mean, this lineup's good. Kyle Schwarber, he's having a weird year, but he still gets on base a bunch because he walks. He still hits bombs. Trey Turner, yeah, he's been bad. Well, Castellanos has bounced back. Bryce Harper's healthy. You got Real Muto. You got Alec Boehm. You got Brandon Marsh having a really good year. So this is a really deep lineup. From 1 to 9, there's a couple spots that aren't that great, but overall, I mean, their most recent lineup, they have Real Muto in the 5 spot, and they have Brandon Marsh hitting 9th. Like that's deep, man. That's really, really deep. So your work's cut out for you in this one, and there's very likely chance that it's the series is a split, but I think you gotta take 3 of 4. I really do. I think it's super important. So, yeah, that's kind of where I'm at with this series. Immediately to start this part, the second half, not really second half, but post All-Star break for the Padres, it's important right off the bat. You got this one, and you got the Blue Jays next. You're gonna have like the Tigers and a couple like kind of more mediocre teams and or like bad teams coming up in the like towards the end, like right before the All-Star break or right before the trade deadlines. My mistake. But this road trip right here is really important, and specifically this Phillies series is really important. Right before you had the Mets one, you needed to take 2 out of 3. They did their business. They were able to take 2 out of 3. That was huge. Well, now you got to take the Phillies series and you got to take 3 of 4. So that's where I'm at with this one. But anything else you guys want to add on this one?
You got to take at least 3. And I mean this, at least. You kind of have to sweep them. You need these games. We're at less than 20 days until the deadline, and you are 6 games back and 4 games under 500. And if you're going to be buyers at the deadline, you need to be above 500 or at least 500. I want to say above because then you know what, you're looking a little more comfortable. But if you're not 2 games back of the wild card before the trade deadline, then you really shouldn't be buying with this team. You could still make the playoffs 2 games back. You don't need to sell the farm. And at that point, you just write it out. But if you're anything more than that, absolutely do not buy. If you're still 6 games back at the trade deadline, don't buy. Don't ruin this team's future just in hopes to save your job. Don't do that.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, that's the thing with AJ Preller is you just never know what the guy's going to do. But that's why these next upcoming series are so important for the Padres, man. I mean, you got to be able to take 3 or 4 from the Phillies, take 2 or 3 from the Blue Jays. You got to get hot. You got to get hot starting now. I mean, I don't know if you guys saw the Phillies flew back Juan Soto. So he flew back with the Phillies for whatever reason. I don't know what stunt they're trying to pull. I don't know what they're trying to do, but yeah, we're kind of hoping that it doesn't get to the point where people are saying, hey, the Padres need to start looking into trading Juan Soto. And you start getting guys like Derek Jeter saying, I'd like to see the Yankees going after Juan Soto. You don't want to get the Phillies flying back Juan Soto for whatever reason. I mean, I think we all know the reason, but we don't want that stuff happening. We don't want to risk losing, or even the media bringing up, hey, you know, they should sell Juan Soto, because they shouldn't. I mean, realistically, if we're being honest, even if they don't make the playoffs this year, I still don't think they should. I don't think 2024 is out of question. And if you do think they should, I understand. You know, you can get a lot of prospect capital. You're going to get the most prospect capital out of him this year than you are if you're not in it next. But, you know, you can't be looking at Juan Soto and saying, if we're not doing good this year, we got to take him out or we got to trade him, because I think he's in the plans next year. But, I mean, I don't want to get to the trade deadline hearing the Padres should sell Soto, Snell, Hader, anybody like that. I want to hear that they should be buying Justin Turner or whoever the hell anyone wants. So hopefully, I mean, it starts now. These next 17, 18 days are crazy important. Probably some of the most important 18 days in Padres history.
Absolutely. So yeah, I think that's going to do it for this one. But let us know in the comments, what do you think? Is this a must-win series? And what's your outlook on the second half? Because I think that these next couple weeks are, like Chase is saying, are going to determine whether or not this team is going to be a buyer or a seller. Even though the Padres have, I mean, maybe to what extent they will do of either of those moves. Like, let's say they're all in on being a buyer, but they struggle. They're not going to do as much. It's going to be very minor things. But say they're back in it, they're 2-3 games back. They're totally in it, and you make some adjustments, and you could very well be back into a playoff spot in the middle of August if that's the case. So I think this is huge. I think this is a huge thing, and I think that also, like, it kind of sets the tone too. We just saw that Fernando Tatis doesn't make the All-Star game. People don't want to call it a snub because of the PED stuff, but he was blatantly snubbed. Blake Snell got snubbed. Like, this team should come into the second half fired up. Manny sucked this first half. Bogart sucked this first half. Like, it's time to turn it on. So I think this is a huge series also in just terms of building some momentum, getting hot, because we keep talking about this. Oh, you know, a little bit here, a little bit there. Well, you just won 5 of 6 to close it out. Keep riding that. Take the rest, take the All-Star break rest, and ride that momentum. So I hope that we're able to see that, but I think I'll do it. So let us know what you think, and Let us know how important this series is in your opinion.